actually got diagnosed with Tourette's. My dad gave me a lift home from the airport one night after I'd been in London for a week, and I was twitching like fuck, to the point where he started crying in the car. If I'm having a panic attack, my mum has to, like, there's nobody else that can like talk me out of it but mum. My mum has had to sleep in my bed as recently as like a month ago because of how bad my anxiety got at one point. I have really bad anxiety, like anyway, but which it never reached a tipping point until after like getting famous. I never had a panic attack until after I was famous, or after I was a musician, or after this was like, after it got to like a height. But the hypochondria, I guess like looking back now, I'm like, oh, I was like such an anxious kid. But then, because now I understand it a lot more and I've got a therapy and I speak about it with people and I'm trying to learn a bit more about it, I kind of look back at things I did and realised that the behaviour was the result of anxiety. But that hypochondria thing was probably where it all started. And it was like, I'd be walking around school like moping and fucking like sort of like blinkered view on everything, and I was just like couldn't concentrate on work I was doing because I was so convinced that I was going to die and that I had this fucking horrible disease, and that I was going to be over and I was going to have to go to hospital. I was going to pass out or have a seizure. I've never done, none of that has ever happened to me. I've touch wood, never been in hospital for anything serious. I've never broken a bone. I've never had any major, I've never had a surgery. I've never had any major illnesses or anything like that. At school, when I was in primary school, I never missed a day off. I never had a day off. I was never ill. Secondary school, I was off ill once. Like, so it wasn't like I had cause for any of this. It was just like in my head, just thinking, and I think maybe that's the thing as well of like, I don't know if that maybe never actually being ill, I didn't know what being really ill felt like. So my mind would maybe conjure something up in that respect. But yeah, no, at the school it just became, sometimes it could become like just really like, again, at the time I didn't understand it. And the symptoms of the anxiety, like being dizzy and fucking, I used to kind of always go like, I used to take big deep breaths like that all the time, and I used to make this noise which I still make when I go like and it's like I found, so basically now looking back I realised that's all anxiety, and I actually got diagnosed with Tourette's like 2 months ago or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, which was to me made, when they said it I was like, oh, that kind of makes fucking sense, because I always thought Tourette's like fucking swearing on that. I never realised it could just be like tics, bodily thingies. But my dad gave me a lift home from the airport one night after I'd been in London for a week, and I was twitching like fuck, to the point where he started crying in the car, because he was like, this is like, again, we never knew it was Tourette's at this point. He was like, this is fucking like, so like mad. He thought I was having like a seizure next time in the car and the rest of it. It was mad. So like, they were obviously concerned, and they're like, why, like, just stop, don't do this if it's making you feel this shit. You never had any of this anxiety or anything before this all took off. But then again, when I went to therapy, I was like, oh, I actually did. But this kind of just tipped it over the edge, maybe, where it became like panic attacks and stuff like that. But so I kind of, yeah, as I say, like looking back, I now realise it was all anxiety. But if I thought I had a brain tumour and I was like, worrying about it so much and getting anxious that I was dizzy, that would then feed back into the, oh, I've got a brain tumour because I'm dizzy all the time. Why else would I be dizzy? Do you know what I mean? I even got so bad a couple of years ago that I went and paid for an MRI scan, cancelled. I was meant to play Austin City Limits Festival in Austin, and I just had to cancel the trip because my anxiety about, I think there's something serious wrong with me, had got so bad that I was like, I can't get on a plane and go to Austin and be away from home. I need to go get an MRI scan, or I need to fucking really see what it's sorting about. So I went and got it, and obviously there was nothing in my head. That was fine.
And no one can talk you out of those. When you're in that moment, call your mum, you call your friends, you tell people, no one can talk you out of it.
I can do it now because I've like done therapies, and I've kind of been able to sort of understand my own anxiety and stuff a bit more. Like, that has made it easier for me to kind of talk myself out of these kind of situations, at least kind of holes that I can dig myself in my head. My mum's also very good at it. My dad's absolutely useless because he's fucking like, he's anxious himself. Like,
You're right, Lewis.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like fucking, he's mental. But so my mum, yeah, she's really good at, like, if I'm having a panic attack, my mum has to, like, there's nobody else that can like talk me out of it, my mum, for sure. Definitely. Like that, by the way, my mum has had to sleep in my bed as recently as like a month ago because of how bad my anxiety got at one point. But I think that was alcohol related. I had been on a bit of a bender the couple of days before. But like, it gets to a point where I'm like, I can't envision, like, I can't imagine it not being something like life-threatening or like super serious because of how fucking, like, sometimes like things don't feel real. Someone will say something to me and I won't understand what they're saying. Like, it's fucking, it gets like proper intense. But yeah, that's kind of, the hypochondria as I've got older is lessened. It's only when I start to have a panic attack or like I start to get really anxious that I'll go, right, I'm dizzy. It's probably anxiety. You're fine. And there's a voice in the back of my head that goes, but what if it isn't? What if there's something really wrong with you? What if you're about to pass out? And then in some situations, I get, my head tells me like, oh, you're about to have a panic attack. You're going to have, like, and that is enough. Like, that's enough hypochondria. Like, it's mad. So it's still something like ongoing, like that I deal with, but it's definitely getting better. I've started taking like a medication for it. I've seen a therapist more regularly. Again, the Tourette's thing was like a good sort of, and it was kind of nice to hear because I started doing this, but I twitched my shoulder. It's actually okay today, but that became so like bad that I was like, this has to be fucking something serious, like motor neuron disease, and all that shit, and like, again, just the wheels starting turning and all the rest of it. So that, finding out the Tourette's thing was like a nice sort of like, oh, that's okay, that's cool, because I don't mind, like, I never really think that like I have like a mental illness of any sort. I just think sometimes I get really anxious and it's fine. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's just one of those things, but I don't see it as like this big thing. I'm quite like, I'll talk to anybody about it. If I'm having a panic attack in a room, I'll be like, I'm having a panic attack, by the way. So just do with that information what you will.
And you said that on stage before?
Yeah, I've done it on stage. I had a couple of panic attacks on stage. We played, and we did an arena tour in March 2020, like right up and like just before COVID kicked off. And I don't know, it was like, obviously it was like, basically it was kind of the culmination of this album campaign that we had done for the last record, and things were great. And it was like, we played Australia and done some amazing shows in Australia in January, Europe in February, and then March was coming back, like kind of nice sort of fucking victory lap. Look what we've done. This is great. Arenas. Can't believe we're doing this in the first album. Amazing. It was the worst 2 weeks of my life. That was fucking shit. I hated every minute of it. Like, if you look at videos of me on stage, I'm doing this twitch that was so bad that it was just like, I couldn't speak between songs. I had to stop songs and start them over again. I saw lots of tweets being like, one tweet in particular that was like, oh, Lewis was fully on cocaine, like fucking, there's like twitching, fucking all that shit. And then obviously I'm like, oh no, people think I'm on cocaine, that feeds into my thing. Do you know what I mean? I don't, and it was fucking horrible. And I think I played, the first two shows were in Glasgow. They were like, the first two arena gigs were in Glasgow. And I remember walking out into it was like a kind of big Coliseum thing at the Hydro in Glasgow. And it's like, I remember walking out into the middle of the arena, empty arena with my mum, my dad, my sister, and looking around and being like, oh fuck, this is like, it was just, I think things had got to a point where they were bigger than, like, I was seeing how big it had gotten. Like, do you know what I mean? It was the first time because the way it worked was my songs had gotten, we were kind of always playing catch up with ourselves in terms of the size of venues we were doing. So like when we could have done 2,000 cap rooms, we were doing 1,000 cap rooms, and then like so on and so forth. So it became like, it was kind of nice because I was like, oh, this is great. Like, songs flying. Like, that next song's done really well as well. Like, we're playing these nice rooms. The crowds are mental. This is class. And I think, yeah, the arena was like, the arena shows were like, oh, fuck, this is real. This is huge. There's a difference between 2,000, because that's another thing I've got a bit of an issue with, especially in the UK. It's really hard to go from 2,000 capacity rooms to 16,000 capacity rooms. It's like, there's very rarely in between. I mean, Palette, you can do like 10, you can do like 5 in places, but it was just like, fucking hell, this is like a big jump. And then that thing of like disappointing people really came into it. And then just like, I don't mind being a support act. I always love, because if I'm shite, no one gives a fuck, because it's like, who cares? Who is this guy? Like, do you know what I mean? We supported Sam Smith on tour, and like they were really gracious and had us on, and but everyone's there to see Sam. No one's there to see me.